Hello, namaste to all the students. Welcome back to the session on the biological chapters of the second PUC particularly. In this session, I am going to talk about one of the chapters in ecology, ecological units. Okay, one of the chapters in ecology, that is organisms and population. This is quite a wide chapter, but in one single session you may not be able to cover up everything. So what I do here is that I just go on introducing the facts, that's all. I may not go much into the details of it. So later you can expand on each of those issues. Right. First of all, what is ecology? Ecology is a branch of biology which studies the interrelationships it studies on the interrelationships between organisms and their environment. So there is a relationship between the environment and the organisms they live in. If the environment is not conducive, favorable, organisms cannot exist at all, can never exist. That is why the environment has to be favorable for the growth of organisms. In turn, they also should keep the environment in a very healthy manner so that they can live long. Interrelationship, or it can also be an interaction. Interaction between organisms and their environment. So it can also be an interrelationship between the biotics and their abiotic factors. Abiotic factors, see, what we call the Panchabhutas. The major abiotic factors are Panchabhutas. Which are they? They are the space, the fire, the wind, and the soil and the water. Soil, water, wind, space, fire. These are the five Panchabhutas. Okay. So these Panchabhutas are the abiotics. Each organism individually has all these Panchabhutas. Individually is made of Panchabhutas, and the world as a whole is made of the Panchabhutas. So an organism can sustain only when these Panchabhutas or the abiotic factors favor the life of the organisms. And this concept of ecology was first introduced by a German scientist called Ernst Haeckel. Okay, Ernst Haeckel first introduced the concept of ecology and defined the concept of ecology. And a scientist called Ritter has been considered as the father of ecology. Father of ecology. And Indian context, Professor Ramdeo Mishra is considered as the father of ecology in the Indian context. Father of ecology of India. Okay. So these are some of the contributions from the major ecologists. So in this ecology, you have studied in the chapter of ecology, evolution, that in the beginning, 15 million years ago, there was only abiotics. There were absolutely no biotics. After the continuous change in the environmental conditions, the reducing atmosphere, slowly getting changed into oxidizing atmosphere, slowly, one by one, the organisms started appearing, and today we have reached a particular level. Hence, the existence of organisms, appearance of organisms, continuation of organisms, everything depend upon the type of abiotics that is there around the organism. And in ecology, we identify the various levels of organization. We identify various levels of organization, like the species, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and the biosphere. So these are the 6 levels of ecological organization. This is the most basic one. This is the largest system. Species is nothing but a particular individual, an assemblage of individuals of a particular of similar type will be called species. The group of the individuals of one species becomes a population. For example, human population consisting of only human beings, cattle population consisting of only cattle, tree population consisting of only trees, or the Hopia population consisting of only Hopia species, Hopia parviflora for example, Hopia parviflora population. So that is how the population will have only the individuals of one particular species. In a given area, if different populations live together, it becomes community in a given area in given time. Hence, species population will comprise of only biotics, and the interaction of these biotics with their abiotics will produce this. So it is the interaction between biotics and their abiotics will produce the various levels like ecosystem, biome and biosphere. Right. Now what is the difference among the three? All the three are one and the same. Basically they are one and the same except the size. This is the largest unit. This is the smallest unit. For example, biosphere. Sphere consisting of life. Hence the entire earth is considered as biosphere. Okay. To make the study of biosphere easier, it is classified into further smaller units called biomes. Further, to make their study easier, biomes are classified into smallest units called ecosystems. So ecosystems are the smallest units of the ecology, and it is actually a representative unit of a biome or biosphere. So if you study, for example, if you study a river ecosystem of a place, the contents, the type of contents present in each river ecosystem will be same across the world. Forest ecosystem will be quite similar all over the world. Desert ecosystem almost similar everywhere. So it is a representation unit. Now let us take up them in a bit detailed way. If you consider biosphere, where organisms, the sphere which has organisms, this biosphere can be classified into different spheres like the hydrosphere, lithosphere, atmosphere, etc. Hydrosphere, where water is present. Lithosphere, where soil, rocks are present. Atmosphere, above the earth's surface. So these are the three levels of biosphere. So these biospheres are classified into biomes. Okay, biospheres are classified into biomes. What is a biome? A representative unit of biosphere in a little smaller way. And these biomes are identified on earth based on the temperature and precipitation. Based on the annual variation in the temperature and the amount of precipitation occurs in an area, the biomes are distinguished into almost 7 types. 7 types of biomes can be identified. For example, the tropical biome, temperate biome, desert biome, then the grassland biome, then tundra biome. Like this, we have almost 7 different types of biomes across the world. Number might vary in different references, doesn't matter. So totally, the entire biosphere can be classified broadly into 7 biomes based on the amount of temperature, variation in temperature and precipitation. What is precipitation? Precipitation is nothing but the amount of rainfall that is obtained in a given area. Temperature variation, see, tropical will have high temperature, more rainfall, more precipitation. Temperate will have low temperature, less rainfall. Desert will have high temperature, less rainfall. Grassland will also quite less rainfall, bit high temperature. So like this, based on the temperature and precipitation factors, biomes are classified into different units. The community can also be considered as called as biocenosis. Biocenosis. This name was given by a scientist called Carl Moebius. A scientist called Carl Moebius gave the terminology called biocenosis for community, which means that the group of many different populations in a given area in a given period of time. Ecology can be studied under 2 different headings. You can still have more. 1, ecology can be studied at the organism level or at individual level, or it can be studied at the population level, group level. Influence of environment on organism, influence of environment on a population. The response of individual on the environment, response of population as a whole on environment. So this branch where organisms are considered or individual organism is considered is called autoecology. This branch where population is considered is called the synecology. So broadly, 2 different categories of 2 different branches of biology made for our own convenience, where individual playing a role and population as a whole playing a role. So we will be taking up the each. In autoecology, you will study both the things, the role of abiotics on the existence of organisms and the responses of biotics on the abiotic conditions existing. So, role of abiotics in existence of biotics, responses of biotics on the abiotics. As I mentioned in the just earlier, there are Panchabhutas, 5 abiotic factors which cause the appearance of the different types of organisms in a given environment. Which are they? They are mainly the temperature, then the water, then the light condition and also the soil conditions. These are the major abiotics. Temperature, the biomes are classified based on the annual variation in the temperature, right? So that temperature will definitely cause the major causal factor to bring about a change in the variation in the existence of organisms. What is that? See, just give an example. The animals like pythons, we have or king cobra, Kalinga Sarpa, is found in our part of the country, which are not at all there in other parts of the world. Shrigandha, very indigenous species, only here, no elsewhere, not anywhere else in the world. Or if you find the Arctic bears, the polar bears, you don't find polar bears in India. Why such variation? Why such variation in the distribution of plants or animals or organisms? That is because of the temperature factor. For example, if you consider the biosphere, this is the equator. This is the equator, okay? These are the poles. These are the poles. Now, very close to the equator, you find tropical area. Next to the tropical area, you find the subtropical area. Next to the subtropics, you find a temperate area. Here also temperate area. And in the last case, this one, polar area. Look at this, how the variation is there. This means that the temperature is very high around the equator, so it is tropic. Temperature is very low along on the poles. So as you move from the equator to the poles, the temperature decreases. Understood? As you move from the equator to the poles, as the latitude increases, temperature decreases. As the latitude increases, temperature decreases. And coming to the altitude, if you consider this as a mountain, at the base of the mountain, temperature is very high. Temperature is very high. As the altitude increases, the temperature decreases. So, with the increase in altitude and with the increase in latitude, the temperature will decrease. Accordingly, the distribution of organisms will also vary. Here, at the base of the mountains, normally the vegetation is more. As you move to the top, vegetation goes on decreasing. Means what? With less temperature, vegetation goes down. Both fauna and flora. And the size of the vegetation, number of vegetation, all will go down as you move from the base to the top. Got it? So, this is the influence of temperature on the distribution of organisms. That is one thing. Secondly, you also have the various zones like megatherms, mesotherms, microtherms, hekistotherms, etc., etc. Means what? Here temperature is high, so vegetation is also more. Here temperature is a bit less, so here it is tropic, this is subtropical. Temperature is further less, so it is temperate zone. This is alpine zone, the high altitude areas, alpine zone. So they are hekistotherms. So temperature is too less. Okay. So with this, the organisms will also vary from megathermal region to hexothermal region. And organisms based on the temperature are eurythermal organisms and stenothermal organisms. It can also be cold-blooded animals, poikilothermus, and warm-blooded animals. So, based on temperature factor, organisms will differ. Why are the temperatures required? For the enzyme activity. Enzymes in the organism will be active only under a particular optimum temperature. Coming to the influence of water, even water quality will also vary from region to region. For example, we have fresh water, we have marine water, we have hypersaline lagoons. Fresh water has got very least saline concentration. Sea water has got about 35% saline concentration. Hypersaline lagoons have got 100% salt concentration. Accordingly, distribution of organisms will also vary. And you can also classify organisms, particularly in ocean conditions. You will see two types of organisms like euryhaline and stenohaline organisms. These are adjustable to wide variation in the salinity. These need a specific saline concentration for their life. Plus, you can also classify the water levels like the metalimnion, mesolimnion and hypolimnion. So, this is the surface water, somewhat the middle level at the bottom level of the water, right. So, types of organisms will vary from one level to another level. Light is again a very, very important factor that causes the existence of organisms. Probably all organisms need light for their existence, correct? For what? In case of plants, it is for photosynthesis, it is for movement, it is for growth, it is for everything. In animals, again for growth or for their, various other activities, maybe locomotion, all those things. And in water, based on the light availability, you can see various levels like the photic zone, aphotic zone and abyssal zone, oceans. This is the photic zone where light availability is more. This is the region where light availability is very less. This is totally dark. Absolutely no light availability in this abyssal zone. So, accordingly, the type of distribution of organisms will also vary. And the quantity of light, quality of light, intensity of light, all are important for existence of organisms. Okay, some need more light, some need shaded places. So, in this way, quantity of light, how the light, say for example, photoperiodism in case of plants is quantity of light. Quality of light, the photosynthesis. Intensity of light, whether it is high intensive sunlight or low intensive sunlight, all those things, right. So, these are all very, very important. And finally, the soil as a factor. Soil gives the strong surface or substratum support for the growth of organisms, the life of the organisms. You have microclimate in the soil. Below the soil surface, there will be microclimate to facilitate the growth of microorganisms. And if you find this as a soil surface, as you go down, you can find so many soil layers which will form soil profile. Soil profile. So there is O layer, A layer, B layer, C layer, D layer, like that. The soil profile will have various layers. In this, the layer O and A will be considered as the topsoil, which is the fertile soil. Fertile soil, because it is this soil which has got rich minerals. Fertility is high, so that plants can grow well in using this topsoil. And also, soil will provide various minerals for the growth of organisms. Understood? They retain moisture, so that moisture retainment is also important for the growth of organisms. pH of soil will facilitate the growth of organisms. So various characters, properties of water are important for the growth of organisms. Now these are all the stimulations provided by abiotic factors. As per these the stimulations, the biotic factors will show the response. What kind of responses? They respond in different ways, like the regulate, then conform, then migrate, and suspend. So by these different ways, organisms respond to the abiotic factors. So biotics responds to abiotic factors. Regulate, it is natural. Thermoregulation, osmoregulation, taking place very naturally, very normally, without the effort of the organisms. It takes place on its own. If the organisms cannot regulate on their own, then they have to conform, they have to accept, and they have to live somehow. Okay, if they cannot conform, gone case. If they cannot conform, then they will change the place for a temporary period. They will migrate to some other area where they can live comfortably. It is for a temporary period of time. Birds migrate from one place to another place. Even some animals also, elephants migrate from one place to another place. So that is migration. If nothing of these responses work out, then finally organisms will suspend themselves. Suspend means withdrawal from the regular activity. Different types of suspending mechanisms are there. For example, in lower organisms like bacteria, they do it with the help of endospores. In plants, they do it with the help of seeds by undergoing dormancy. In animals, they undergo hibernation during the winter. This is called winter sleep. They undergo estivation during summer. That is called summer sleep. So by all these methods, organism will remain dormant. Dormant means no activity, zero activity, and just pass the time. Whenever the conditions become all right, they will revert back and carry out the process or life activities. So this is response. But sometimes organisms will try to adopt themselves. So they show adaptations. They show adaptations. What is adaptation? Adjustment, modification. So adaptation is nothing but modification made by organisms themselves so as to adjust to the given environmental conditions. How the adaptation takes place? Adaptation may take place morphologically, physiologically, or by behavioral means. By behavioral means, the modification can happen. These all can happen in both plants as well as animals. Okay. For example, morphological adaptations in plants and in animals. In plants, it can happen in case of cactus, where they will have the sunken stomata, then cuticle, thick cuticle, then formation of phylloclade, etc. In case of animals, the blubbers is a modification, the morphological modification. Physiologically also, plants as well as animals show modification. What is that? Plants will have a mechanism called CAM mechanism, crassulation acid mechanism of photosynthesis. This is particularly in the succulent plants. Okay. Then in case of animals, say for example kangaroo rat, showing the fat metabolism and the urine concentration. So they will not pass the urine very frequently because they live in the desert conditions. So they will concentrate them and pass out only once or twice in a day. Fat metabolism, they obtain water by metabolizing the fats. Behavioral adaptation is seen in case of chameleons, and also the desert lizards, behavioral adaptation, basking under the sun for a long time, then going to the shade. So all those things. Chameleons keep on changing the colors for their protection. So you can collect as many examples as possible for each of these modifications. Totally, the organisms show modifications or adaptations so as to lead a comfortable life in a given environment. So there will be a structural or some kind of changes. So these are all the various issues of autecology, the individual level, at the organism level. And what about the synecological level? Synecology refers to the population. So this is referring to population. What is a population? It's a group of organisms, a group of similar organisms is a population living in a particular area in a given period of time. Now, the population will have some attributes. Population will have some attributes, characters. If you have to consider any group as a population, it must show these following characters. Which are they? They are mortality, natality, sex ratio, age distribution, and the density. Death rate, birth rate. Sex ratio, male to female, number of male individuals and number of female individuals in a given population. Age distribution. Age distribution is the pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive. What is the number of each individuals in each of these categories? Which will give you three types of populations, like the stabilizing population, stable population, expanding population, or declining population. In a stable population, these two are more. I mean, these two are more. In an expanding population, this is more. This is a bit less. This is too less. Declining population, this is more. This is comparatively okay. This is too less. Okay. Hence, this is age distribution in a given population. So that has to be there. So a good healthy population is the one where there is almost the equal representation or more representation in these two categories, less in this category. Density is number of individuals in a given population. Okay, number of individuals. For example, we have some formations called Hopia formation. Why do we call a forest as Hopia formation? Because the density of Hopia plants is more. Number of Hopia plants is more, so it is named after them. Okay, then but again depends upon the quality of the plant. Suppose there is only one Ficus bengalensis and there are lakhs of communist plants. Now what will you say? Which is better? Though the density of Ficus is less, it is better to have Ficus than having more number of communist plants. So you will have to be careful while explaining all these things. Then a population must also have the growth. Must also have the growth. It should not be stagnant. It should change, vary in its population size. So growth factors are there. Which are they? Positive growth, negative growth factors. Positive growth factors are natality and immigration. Negative growth factors are mortality and emigration. Natality is birth, immigration is I, mortality is death, emigration is E. Now all these factors, growth can be determined by using a formula. The n of t plus 1 is equal to n of t plus the birth plus immigration minus death plus emigration. So this is the formula. This is the population at a given time, population at given time in the past and in that time period. For example, n of t plus 1, n is the population during this is September 30, 2020. Now population at December 31, 2019. You will have the data. And now birth in this period of time, in these 9 months. What is the number of infants produced in these 9 months? How many have come into the population in these 9 months? How many have died in these 9 months? And how many have left the group in these 9 months? So you apply those data to this formula and ultimately you will get the number of individuals, population, density in a particular period of time. Okay, this is how you determine. Hence, a population should never stay stagnant. It should show the variation plus or minus. And population growth can be logistic growth or the exponential growth. Logistic growth or exponential growth. Logistic growth is the desired growth. Exponential growth is not desired in any given population because it will come to end very soon. So logistic growth means initially there will be a slow growth and then there will be a fast growth, rapid growth, then the growth will slow down and then that will maintain for a long period of time. So this is called lag phase, this is called log phase, this is called slow growth phase, this is called steady phase. So this shows S curve. This is called S curve. Whereas in exponential phase, as the food is available, the growth will be very fast. As the food gets exhausted, it falls down. So this gives the J-shaped curve. This is not good. Population should remain for a long period of time. That means it has to manage the resources in a very wise manner. So here the resources are managed in a wise manner so that population will remain for a long period of time. Here growth is fast, but it suddenly ends, suddenly falls down, which is not good, which is not desired. And finally, coming to the interactions in the population. Population interactions. You find various types of interactions because population is a group of individuals who are similar among to each other, and whenever there are individuals more than one, definitely there will be an interaction. Nobody keeps quiet. So there will be a definite interaction taking place. So this interaction is of different types. It may be positive interaction, or it may be negative interaction. What is that positive interaction? Where there is benefit. For example, mutualism, then commensalism. You can also take up proto-cooperation. In negative interaction, you have got competition, parasitism, predation, then amensalism, and hyperparasitism. So many types of interactions are found in a given environment. So what are they? Let's see them one by one. Predation means there is a interaction between stronger section of organisms and weaker section of organisms. So stronger section of organisms are called predators, weaker section of organisms are called the prey. So predation is nothing but a prey-predator interaction. So predator will always get the food by feeding on the prey, and this is the basis for food chain, and this is the basis for a balance in the nature. What happens if the predator is more? There will be no prey. If there are no predators, the prey population will go high. So there will be an imbalance. So both will be kept in a normal balanced number, balanced density through this kind of interaction. Of course, animals can escape the predation, but what about the animals? Plants? Plants cannot escape the predation. So they will adopt in different ways. For example, some plants have got the chemicals in extreme quantity, tobacco plant, so many drug plants, and even the plants like this one, what is that? Calotropis gigantea, or plants like this one, ಯಾವುದು ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇದುಂಟಲ್ಲ ಯಾವುದು which has got the chemical content very, ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತುಳುವಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಾಯರ್ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ನಸ್ ನಕ್ಸೋಮಿಕಾ. the plants have got too bitter taste, too bitter. Okay, so strictness naxomica. We have also the one more plant, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ನೆಕ್ಕಿಯ ಗಿಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. So ಇದರಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ there are many chemicals which are very dangerous to the animal life. So normally the cattle don't feed on these plants. Okay, so that kind of resistance will be developed in case of plants, since they cannot run away, they cannot move to avoid the predators. So predation is very, very important in any given environment. Then comes competition. Competition again is important, which naturally occurs in a given environment where there will be an interaction between two organisms to obtain something. It may be for food, it may be for shelter, it may be for anything. So there will be an interaction between two groups of organisms or two individuals to get something. Okay, so that competition may be intraspecific competition or interspecific competition, or it can be the competitive release or it can be interference competition, or it can also be resource partitioning. It can also be resource partitioning. What is that? See, intraspecific competition means within a single population, within a single species, the competition. For anything, it may be for food, or it may be for shelter, it may be for reproduction also. Interspecific competition means the competition between the species for shelter or food. Competitive release means when two competitors are involved in a particular interaction, the weaker section of organisms will reject themselves from the competition. So they will release themselves from the competition. So we have so many instances where the weaker section of organisms have vacated a particular place because of the presence of the stronger section of organisms. Interference competition means an organism will have some interference in its activity. For example, a deer is grazing in a particular place. So when it is grazing, suddenly it might feel the presence of tiger. Okay, it might feel the presence of tiger. So now the very presence of tiger will interfere the deer from grazing comfortably. So then what it does? It just runs away. So competition is by interfering, or it can also be by resource partitioning. Resource partitioning means in a given geographical area, the resources are distributed very systematically. We have the examples of some monkeys, warblers. Okay, suppose in a given forest 5-6 species of warblers are there, then these warblers will not come out for feeding simultaneously at the same time. So what they do is they will have internal adjustment where one species comes at one particular time. then goes back. Another species will come at another time, then goes back. So, two species will not meet together at any given period of time. So, what happens if all of the species come together simultaneously? There is a problem that the resource may get destroyed. So, when they come systematically at different periods of time, all these resources will be systematically distributed to all the individuals of all the species. So, there will be no destruction. So, throughout the day or night, the different periods of time, the different organisms will come and feed. So, that is called the resource partitioning. So, this is how they will try to avoid the competition. So, all sorts of interactions can be found in a given competitive kind of interaction. Then, third is the parasitism. Parasitism is an interaction between the host and the parasite. What is a parasite or who is a parasite? Parasite is an organism which cannot prepare its own food and it depends on others for food. The organism on which the parasite depends is called a host. So, in this what happens is that it is always plus minus kind of interaction where this gets benefited, this gets destroyed. So, a parasite will always live at the cost of the host. It might kill the host, it might not kill, it may keep on destroying the host, like this. So, parasite host interaction is always continuous. What do you mean by continuous? As the host tries to become resistant for parasite, parasite again develops further resistance. So, mutual resistance keeps on enhancing, increasing. So, there is no end for that, and that is a continuously evolved one. So, there will be an evolution in the resistances mutually. Host also will be resistant for parasite. In turn, parasite tries to become more resistant for the host. So, this we see almost every fraction of the second, and we also do it. We are also involved in it. Then, the parasite will have the host. Host may be primary host or secondary host. Primary host is the main host. Secondary host is the host for taking rest. Okay, so parasite always causes the disease in the primary host, takes rest in the secondary host. Okay, so it is very active in the primary host. Say, you have so many examples for that. The diseases caused in plants by the fungi or bacteria, and the sporozoan like Plasmodium vivax causing malaria, malarial parasite causing the diseases in human beings. So, all these are the various aspects, and this parasite can be the, it may be ectoparasite or endoparasite. Ectoparasite or endoparasite. Ectoparasite means the parasite living outside the host, outside on the surface of the host organism. Endoparasite is the one where a parasite lives within the system of the parasite host. It can be brood parasitism. Brood parasitism, where this is a very unique kind of. Actually here, for example, quail trying to lay the eggs in the nest of the crow. So, best example is quail-crow relationship. Crow does not know that the quail has laid its eggs in its nest, and without its knowledge it will keep on hatching the coil's eggs. That is called brood parasitism. And we also have something called hyperparasitism. Hyperparasitism means a parasite living on a parasite. That is called hyperparasite. Parasite living on a parasite. Got it? Female Anopheles is a parasite on which again this parasite, Plasmodium vivax, lives. It is a hyperparasitism. So it is very dangerous. So these are the various types of parasitic modes of interactions. We have commensalism, which shows the interaction where one is benefited, the other is neither benefited nor lost, nor face any loss, neither benefited nor harmed. For example, we have lianas and trees. Lianas are benefited, trees have no problem. Epiphytes, what is liana? Liana is a woody climber. Liana is a woody climber, okay, growing on the trees. Epiphytes, small plants growing on other tree trunks. So here also absolutely tree doesn't have any problem. It doesn't incur any loss. These will be benefited. And you have birds and cattle, egrets and cattle. Egrets, small birds on cattle. Cattle will not have any problem. Egrets will get the benefit. Okay, and then you can also have the the group of fishes are there with what are they? We have salmon fishes and the other group of fishes where there are again there will be commensalism kind of interaction. Then you have amensalism. Amensalism means one will have loss, other will not be at loss. So there is no benefit. One will be at loss, other will not be having any benefit or loss. For example, the fungi or bacteria will produce antibiotics. Okay, so this is also called antibiosis. It is also called antibiosis. Say for example, the fungi or bacteria produce antibiotics. These antibiotics will kill the predators. Antibiotics will kill the predators. But these do not kill the bacteria or fungi. Suppose this is produced by a fungus, that fungus will not be killed by antibiotics. So no harm. But it kills the opponent. So that is the amensalism kind of interaction, which is also called antibiosis. Then we have mutualism kind of interaction, which represents the symbiosis, Examples are plenty. Lichens, mycorrhiza, you have the root nodules, and see, lichens, fungus, alga. Alga provides food, fungus provides the shelter and moisture. This is roots and the fungus. Fungus provides moisture and minerals, roots provide shelter. This is between bacteria, Rhizobium leguminosarum, and roots. Bacteria provide nitrogen to the plant, plant provides food and shelter. And here this shows halotism. Halotism means among the two, one acts as a slave the other acts as a boss. Okay, so here alga acts as a slave, fungus acts as a boss. So that interaction is called halotism. Halotism. We also have another example in case of plants for the process of pollination. Yeah, pollination is also a kind of mutualism. Organisms, the insects, birds get nectar or shelter while the plants get pollinated. We have example for such pollination, that is sexual deceit in an orchid called Ophrys, where the Ophrys bird resembles the female moth, okay, female insect, and by looking at this female insect, the male insect gets attracted and tries to copulate on this flower thinking that it is a female insect, during which pollination will take place. So that is called sexual deceit. Example is an Ophrys, orchid called Ophrys. Okay, so these are the various aspects of the interactions taking place in a population. We also have one more interaction called proto-cooperation. Proto-cooperation. Actually, mutualism and proto-cooperation are quite close, but the difference is that here the interaction association is permanent. Here association is not permanent. For example, you have crocodile and birds. Birds may not be there 24 hours into 365 days in the mouth of the crocodile, but interaction is there. The crocodile on the seashore, on the river bank will keep its mouth open, and bird will come and sit. It will pluck out all the ingredients that are there inside in between the teeth. That becomes a food for birds and becomes a relief for crocodiles. See, that kind of interaction is called proto-cooperation, a kind of symbiosis, but there is no continuous or long-lasting association. Continuous association will not be there. Understand? And it is not specific also. Any bird can sit in the crocodile mouth, so that specificity need not be there. But in these cases, there is a specificity. Got it? So, these are the various types of interactions that can be found in any given population. So, in a very tablet form, the different informations of organisms and populations has been given. Still, you can find many more, but this is in short. Okay. So, study well, collect as much information as possible. Thank you. All the best.